Hello everyone, I'm happy to welcome you to our first live stream as part of the side event during the new European Bauhaus Festival, the first festival of its kind in Brussels, but also here in Saxony-Anhalt today. And I'm happy to have here guests from the Bauhaus, from Fraunhofer, and I would like to welcome them first of all, Professor Dr. Regina Bittner, Dr. Möller from the Bauhaus, Kaiser from Fraunhofer, and Tuan as Bauhaus agent. So we are here today in the famous Bauhaus School, which in the 1920s wanted to initiate a structural change by restructuring the design disciplines, and that on an international level for no less than the creation of a new world. Today the Bauhaus is a World Heritage Site, UNESCO World Heritage Site, and I would like to start with you, Ms. Bittner, Mr. Möller, who are responsible for the Bauhaus Academy and also for the culture and education part of the project here in Saxony-Anhalt. What do you think should a current Bauhaus initiative as the new European Bauhaus should achieve when it comes to structural change in the age of coal phase-out and climate neutrality?
Well, yeah, thank you very much for this introductory question to our talk. I presume that what is very crucial in regards to sort of perception towards the challenges we are confronted with nowadays is that it is certainly also a cultural issue. So it has a lot to do with questions of education. It has a lot to do also with a change in our mindset and the way how we approach our environments, how we approach each other, how we approach actually also what we former called the environment is already a very problematic term because it sort of supposed that there is something outside of us, but we certainly have realized nowadays that all of the sort of impacts we have created in our way of life are now striking back. So we have to find a way how we live in a world with also species that are multiple, so that means, so it's not only about human, but it's also about non-human. So looking back actually to this fascinating heritage of a school that initiated also a structural change in the design cultures, I think what we can build on and why it makes really sense also to rediscover this legacy, which is mainly a sort of a pedagogic legacy, is to think about how actually this way of thinking, this radical way of thinking, could be sort of updated, reinvented for contemporary terms. And so far, how we could be part of a much broader sort of cultural initiatives, how, for example, also the Bauhaus Dessau Foundation could become much more a platform for those kind of design and architecture initiatives that really sort of intended to initiate this cultural transformation in regard to the way how we deal with our sort of material cultures, how we deal with our buildings, how we deal with our objects in our everyday life. And I think this sort of radical change in the perspective towards design is something that could be, again, sort of part of a much broader European, even international approach towards environmental justice in regards to actually our planet.
Thank you very much. Maybe one addition for the audience who can ask questions via the live stream, so via the comments section, and I would like to ask Werner Möller now if you would like to add and give us your experience, what you saw on the project so far, working with the people in sites, for instance.
Mm-hmm. As additional part to Regina Bittner, 3 years in front of a year of a big anniversary of the Bauhaus in 2019, we start together with the cultural agency of the state with a program that was called Bauhaus Agents. It was a special program that started to bring on to eye level the school education principles together with the question of cultural educational programs. So how can we bring experiences from the Bauhaus questions of making, of doing into the schools, together with the teachers and with the pupils to work on this. This was very important to transfer these ideas, as Regina Bittner mentioned, how can we currently actualize these ideas, to bring it together so we work together about more than 4 years together with the schools and bring in also like a refreshing the educational principles. To educational principles to the existing school structures and bring a reform inside. This was this idea. It was a very successful tool because this was also the idea, like in the Bauhaus in the 20s, to make prototypes, to make models that can be used further for the future and could be adapted for changes in questions of transfer. And transfer is, I think, the second term in this time of transformation, when what we are now working with this question of the cold, and also with the shrinkiness of cities with structural breaks like sites. And in this case, we started with a prototype research program inside of a Saxony-Anhalt project from January to February. And it was, I thought, first test field, what can we do? Because there's a difference if the Bauhaus Foundation with the museum and with our departments work together with schools is a different if we go directly in the civil society without these facilities in the background and work directly between cultural agents and cultural educational programs inside of the city in a situation of transformation and transfer.
Thank you very much. And luckily, we also have one of the Bauhaus agents that was working in sites here, Mr. Tuan, right? Just tell us, how did you experience the situation in sites? What can you tell us about how culture and education can really move this structural change? Let us know.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction and the question. I may ask if you allow me some words to give you a brief introduction into the work of the Bauhaus agent program and sites. So the research team operates within the methodology of Bauhaus Dessau, which understands art and educational, cultural education as political fields of action and places of collectivity where social issues are actively addressed in order to help shape the present and the future. So since we are believing artistic and cultural processes are particularly suited to accompany such process of change, they invite a change of perspective when it comes to questioning one's convictions, getting involved into new things or crossing borders. In the same way, we are believing cultural education offers tools of transdisciplinary processes that combine aspects of political education, cultural education, and environmental education, and those make it possible not only to understand sustainable cultural change holistically, but also to help shape that. So therefore, we are convinced that cultural education plays a crucial role in shaping the processes of structural change. And having said that, one of the main concerns of the Bauhaus agents during our qualitative urbanism was to talk and to listen to the Bauhaus, to the sites people and actors and players in order to get an idea of the needs and desires of them to help and to support and empower them in their role of shaping the structural change.
I saw a lot of interesting examples during your presentation that we had in March. So can you name some of them, for instance, that you had in mind for places of change? I know about a heated bus stop, for instance, but there were others, I think, no?
Yeah, one prominent example was this heated bus station, which comes just from an idea that we heard that a lot of people were saying that there is a need in places of gathering and places of encounter and places to meet, actually. So this is also an idea because of in rural regions the youth mostly meet at bus stations because it was very pragmatic to have a dry place to meet, and there were not many. So this is mostly one of the ideas to have this implemented maybe in sites as a place for gathering and place to meet for the youth, but also we just heard some needs, simple needs like a place also to meet when it comes to transgenerational desires. For example, an coffee place for older people as well as for pupils.
And I mean, there we see a nice connection between the structural change actually, so that we have to do a lot in infrastructure, not only public transport, but it's one part of it, but also developing places of change where the change of mind, as we could say, can actually take place, no? And of course people have to use it, that's for sure. So ideally it's something they develop by themselves, and that's what I understood was also part asking people, so what do you actually miss, no? And the coffee place seems obvious actually, but in some places in rural areas it's not, no? Because it's closed at, I don't know, 6 p.m. or something. So I think that can be really moving forward the structural change there. Well, what would your last question for you? What would your wish be to develop it further? How, well, I mean, you had a pilot phase. How would you drive it further? What next steps would you see there?
Yeah, I think, on behalf of the team of Bauhaus Agent Zeit, I think it needs to come to action in the next phase. So we are planning, or we were planning, and we were talking with all the peoples in Zeit and the players and the cultural workers there. So they are waiting to things come to action. So
yeah. So and this is in general something that we want to drive within the project. No, all the ideas that we developed actually since the new European Bauhaus was initiated by the Commission to also grow it and to really develop it. And then ideally to transfer it, not only in sites, but then to see how can the whole brown coal region benefit from it, but also Saxony-Anhalt, and in the end, of course, the whole EU ideally. Thank you very much for that. And I would like to welcome our next guest, Kaiser from Fraunhofer Gesellschaft. Actually a background, as we talk here about culture and education, where you would think, okay, what does it have to do with it? But I think you have some special formats, and Fraunhofer, as I learned as well, is quite broad. So you have a lot of departments, and I found yours especially interesting. Maybe you can tell us something about that. But you had also some very concrete project ideas in terms of crowd innovation challenges. Maybe you can tell us about this as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Vogt, for your questions. So you are fully right, Fraunhofer is a large organization. Actually, it's Europe's largest organization for applied research and most, I would say, well known for technology development. And as you said, maybe you do not see the connection directly. But it consists of 76 institutes at the moment. And also there are several colleagues and several institutes also organized in some, let's say, 2 different also alliances among Fraunhofer, which are also connected to questions of culture, of questions of arts. So there's one alliance on science, arts, and design, and there's also an alliance on cultural heritage research. So as you see, yeah, we have a very broad, let's say, or we have a very broad topics at the Fraunhofer Society. And also, they are not only, let's say, engineers and natural scientists in the overall organization. They are also economists and social scientists, like at my own institute. And I myself, I am a political scientist, social scientist. And at our institute, we are also working a lot with questions of structural change, on transformation, on questions of how to bring in the human factor also on the technology development. So this is also, I would say, very much related to our topics and our questions also in this Saxony-Anhalt project. And now regarding your question regarding, let's say, some specific ideas with regard to the project. So the Crowd Innovation Challenge is one idea, one tool or one method we are currently developing 4 questions on how to develop and drive innovation. So developing new ideas, and it's a kind of a digital platform where, let's say, people can participate in bringing in their ideas, and it works, I would say, in 2 different directions. So, for example, the idea for the Zeitz project was, you know, we can bring in, or we can having kind of a problem, or kind of what people also from Zeitz can bring in their problems, and then there is a kind of a platform that other people can bring in their ideas how to solve the problems. So the idea is not to, you know, it's kind of an open innovation process that is a bit kind of structured, and then also people can discuss about it and can also evaluate the ideas, and then there is also kind of an ability to discuss about this and to also come into this communication about problems. But on the other side, there's also a potential that some, let's say, kind of people from university or from companies or from other organizations can bring in their ideas for solutions. And then also there could be a discussion and a kind of a, let's say, debate on for which kind of application this can be used as well. So it works, I would say, in both directions.
So as the name says, no, crowd innovation challenge, the crowd solves its problems basically by itself. No, I mean it must be facilitated by technology or also institution like Fraunhofer, but very interesting. And I also know you led also a workshop during our pilot phase, no? Well, what was your experience working insights, and this connects a little bit to our next live stream, so I'm promoting it already, where we talk about the Tsekiva area. But tell us, how was your experience being insights and talking to the people?
The experience was quite nice, I would say. It was very inspiring. So we discussed with several stakeholders, and especially people from the cultural sector, but also from let's say, from companies. So this was the idea, to bring them together, and also with some people from the administration, how to develop the Tsekiva area. So bringing in their ideas, bringing in their visions for the future of this, let's say, of this kind of area there. And so we had really very nice discussions, and also very importantly, I guess it was one of my first meetings, physical meetings after 2 years of COVID, and maybe this was even, let's say, a kind of came on top, I would say, on this experience, and it was also a kind of an inspiring environment, which is also, I think, very important for, let's say, being a bit innovative, being a bit creative in developing ideas. And we also used different methods there, so people could note down the ideas, but they could also draw their ideas, and also they could really build their ideas, and we used
Lego bricks.
Yeah.
So we're definitely happy to have you with us, the Fraunhofer Institute. Maybe one question. Do we have any questions on the live stream at the moment? No? Okay, good. So then maybe looking at the, as we call it, work package, culture and education overall, Ms. Bittner and Mr. Möller, what do you see is the direction? So what are your wishes? Where would you see or like to develop it during the next phases?
Yeah, on the one hand, I think one crucial topic in regard to the specific conditions of Zeitz would have been also to think more radically and sort of push it really further, this whole question about metabolism in regard to the materialities, the material heritage that is in Zeitz, as a wonderful resource for completely new thinking of how the building sort of and architecture could be work in a different and alternative perspective towards more repair, taking care for the existing conditions instead of thinking from top down, rather than thinking also with the materials and actually the everyday life in which these buildings have already a long aspect of life. And the second aspect, I think, is very crucial here to establish a new culture of collaboration not only within actually experts, locals, actors, networks, but also in terms of the different disciplines. So moving towards a more post-disciplinary approach, and I think this constellation of this Saxony-Anhalt project is certainly insofar really sort of admirable, as Barbara Steiner already said in the beginning, that they made it, so to speak, that you found a way to collaborate and to find a language to talk to each other, because this represents already also that we cannot sort of anymore sit in our own channels of disciplines, but rather than trying really to overcome these boundaries and to find approaches that allows us this radical, even post-disciplinary way of education and teaching. Yeah.
And I will add again something special to the local situation, because this is one part is very important, the collaboration and the networks, and also this question on place and inside the working project itself. Because we have to learn also together in our different disciplines the language of the others, that we can talk together. As Urban Kaiser and I have also some discussions, and we were wondering during our conferences, what did he really say? So this is also very important to learn together, because this is also against the old Bauhaus idea that we go more and more in disciplines, in our own careers, in our working field. So to overwind, this part is one. And I think the second one, very important, is that you have, on the one hand, this overview of collaborations and exchange of networks about ideas, post-graduated and so on. But if you really look on local situation and sites, you have the reality of the shrinking cities in the situation of a structural break and the end there of an educational career, and the change for the future is that you can have there the high school. But there is no University of Applied Science, no connections, there's no laboratory from companies which really give a career or a chance for a transfer or a transformation. So that is the reason also again where I apply for cultural educational programs, because they help for the way that the people become more or less with the skills to discover different skills, to get together more in collaborations. But this way is a pathfinder way. And I thought this is very important for this question of changes. And that we have really to look on the possibilities in sites, what is really there existing, and where can you, for example, give interest to industries or companies where will come, and they also bring laboratories with them. So that also more than higher school education brings interest to stay in sites, not have it only as a living place with good rents or nice nature.
And I mean, this is really the problem that the new European Bauhaus can solve in a structural challenged area, no? And it happens in the spirit of the historic Bauhaus with all the disciplines we bring together here, but also with regards to the key values of the initiative itself. So sustainability, inclusiveness, we talked about it when actually talking to people and finding out their needs, about challenges. So you mentioned the sustainable aspect with the material metabolism, to see, okay, what building materials do we actually have there inside. We will find out about this in a later session in our third live stream as well. And then also, of course, about aesthetics. No? So how does the city get attractive? How can it overcome the problem of structural change and be like a magnet in the future for young people, for families, and so on, to actually not only solve the problem, not solve, but change, develop the change, the structural change, but also the demographic change that we see in the area as well. So if we don't have questions, do we have any in the stream? No? Okay, good. Any further remarks from your side? Otherwise, yeah?
Yeah, maybe just one impression I would like to share also from our workshop in sites. I was really impressed by the, let's say, engagement of the people there, and also their really, it was a kind of, we had, I think 4 hours, but it was, I don't know, the time was, I don't know, it was everything so fast and so lively, and the discussions, and So we were really very lots of creative ideas, and also how to bring together the nature also and let's say also spaces for social collaboration, and also let's say for working together. So this was really very inspiring also for, I guess, hopefully the development of let's say the area and also of this overall project.
I mean, that's the basis, no? That the people take part in it, and I think that's one of the challenges of the European Bauhaus as well. And we talked about being UFO, no, not only landing there, but also see how do the people react. I mean, we have people from sites here today, and also later on from another structural challenged region in the east of Germany. So I think we will learn a lot about that as well today. I thank you very much for the session so far, and we will see us in later sessions as well, so stay tuned, and thank you very much again.